all. So last week we talked about the alignment of our pelvis. So we talked about finding our hip bones or our ASISs and seeing whether they were in line with our pubic bone. So remember, if your ASIS was too far forward, further forward than your pelvic bone, that's an anterior pelvic tilt. If your pelvic bone is in front of your ASIS, then that is a posterior pelvic tilt. And if they're not aligned and one's in front of the other, then you've got a twist, which can often happen with one of those tilts as well. So today we're going to look at some of the exercises that you can do for a posterior pelvic tilt. So that is this one, when your pubic bone is ahead of your hip bones. So if you did that triangle, your fingers would be sort of pointing forward rather than straight down between your toes. So that way. And your back of your back, instead of having that natural curve there, it might look flat. And often with a posterior pelvic tilt, you also have a rounded shoulder. So you kind of flat back, rounded shoulder, tucked under, okay? Now this position can be really bad for your pelvic floor, so it's something that you want to get out of. And it's not as common as the anterior pelvic tilt, especially with pregnant women, because with the bellies that come out, we often counter by doing this. So, but it's still a really important one to fix if you do have it. So I wanted to give you a couple of exercises for that. Now with a posterior pelvic tilt, what tends to happen is your rectus abdominis and your obliques are normally over tight, meaning they're strong and your lower abs are weak. So that's what pulls down that front here. So that gives you that rounded shoulder, as these muscles are so tight that they're pulling everything down. And what that then also means is, as this goes under, your glutes, so your butt, is normally over tight as well. So it's too strong nearly, right? Like they're over tight, and your hamstrings are normally very tight as well. And that's pulling everything down, and the abs are pulling everything forward, giving you this position and that flat back. Now, converse to that, because you're in this position all the time, your quads are actually really weak, and your lower back is also weak. So what we want to do is sort of stretch out some of those other muscles and strengthen these. So I'm going to give you a couple of exercises. The first one is a lunge. Now I think I'm just going to move this down a little bit. So hopefully you can still see my head. Alright, so I've got a chair here, and if you're relatively new to this, I suggest having a chair just to balance. So the lunge, you're going to bring one leg back, one leg forward, and we are going to go straight down and up. Now key for this is that your knee does not go over your toe, it goes straight down, and you only go down as far as you can. You may find that your hip flexors are tight and it stops you from going down. Now this is such a fantastic exercise because it actually works your quads, hamstrings and glutes together as a unit, and they all have to work at the same time, meaning that one doesn't dominate. And when you've got that posterior pelvic tilt here, two of them are dominating and one's getting left out. So doing these lunges, so 3 sets of 10 on each side each day is really going to help, or every second day, whatever you can fit in. I know we're all busy, right? So that's going to help with that leg strength, because that's so important. Then I want you to grab your chair and actually sit on it, because the next couple of stretches we're going to do here. And what's great about these stretches is if you're in an office job and you sit all day, that's going to tighten up your hamstrings, and you can actually do this at work a little bit. You might have to squidge back from your desk, but I want you to take one leg and extend it straight out the front so that it's a nice leg, straight leg. And I want your toe, I don't know if you can quite see, I want your toe to point straight up, okay? So don't let your toe go out like this or in like this. Make sure it's exactly straight up to the ceiling. And simply keeping a neutral spine, lean forward until you can feel the stretch up the back of your leg and your hamstring here. Now, don't go so far that it hurts, and don't let yourself round like this, because that's putting that pressure on the abdominal wall and taking it off your hamstrings. So nice tight back, straight back, and go forward. And I want you to hold this for 30 seconds and then switch to the other leg and down. Now you can see I am incredibly tight on my hamstrings, so I can hardly go forward at all. I am totally feeling this right now. And this is great if you're in an office job. Do it 30 seconds each leg and do it 3 or 4 times during the day just to stretch them out. And the other one, whilst you're sitting here, I want you to do is actually do the pelvic tilt. So if you think about how you sit like this because you've got that posterior pelvic tilt. So what I want you to do is go into a pelvic tilt, so you're actually doing the opposite, and hold for 10 seconds and then relax and hold and relax. And what you should feel is, if you squidge down a little bit, you'll feel those 2 sit bones there. In your normal position, you'll find that you're sitting more back on your tailbone. And what you'll do is, to get that tilt position, you're going to rock onto those sit bones and then just slightly in front of them. Keeping your back neutral. And then relax. And you want to do 3 sets of 10 of those as well. So whilst you're doing your office work, set your alarm at some point during the day and do your hamstring stretches, do some tilts, then set it again for another couple of hours, some more hamstring stretches and some tilts. It's a great way to have a little bit of a break and also keep yourself stretched. And the last one that you will need to do as well is some back extensions. So maybe some Supermans, and we've done that before, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to quite do it here. But remembering, imagine I'm lying flat on the ground and just lifting your back off the ground and down. Lifting your back off the ground. It's a really small movement, and you're targeting your lower back because that's what's going to be weak. Okay, so let's just go through those again really quickly. If we've got that posterior pelvic tilt, so that means our pubic bone is in front of our hip bone. So if we do our triangle, our fingers are kind of pointing out. Our back is flat and our shoulders are often rounded forward. And that means that we're overworking our rectus abdominis and our obliques here, underworking our lower abs and our TVA. So that beginner program, make sure you're doing that. And if you haven't, I'll put a link below so that you can start doing it, because that's going to be incredibly important to keep doing that, your TVA stretches. Then we want to strengthen our quads so that our glutes and our hamstrings aren't going to be taking over. So we talked about doing the lunges, making sure that we go down with our knee staying over in line with our ankle, not going over our toe. So working that position. We had our hamstring stretches, which was while we were sitting, or you could even doing it standing if you would like. Our pelvic tilts, so 3 sets of 10 of those, and then our back extensions. Okay, next week I'm going to do some stretches for the twist. So if our pelvis is twisted, and then the week after I'll look at some of those anterior pelvic stretches. Okay, I'll see you next week. Catch ya.